Hi everyone, welcome back to Half Acre Adventures. My name's Gord. I have been asked a lot of questions about how to get a garden started, and in particular about raised beds. We have 3 different examples of raised beds that we use in our garden, and I really like using raised beds to grow our vegetables in. For starters, it helps to keep all the soil contained, and that's one of the things that I would recommend spending the money on, is actually getting good soil, good quality soil for your garden, and then amending that every year. But you want to keep that good soil in one place and not have it erode and drain away. And so a raised bed absolutely helps to do that. It also helps to keep the weeds out and maybe some pests. I find that it helps with, there's less soil compaction, and it tends to keep the soil warmer, so you can start a little bit earlier in the season, and the soil also has better drainage. And lastly, it is nice to not have to bend over and crawl around on the ground when you're tending to your plants. So having them raised up a little bit absolutely helps as well. So let's go have a look at the garden. So one of the first types of raised beds that I built was actually out of pallets. I love using pallets in the garden and around our house and our yard because they're free. And when I started collecting pallets around town, I quickly noticed that they're not all the same size and they're not all the same type. What you really want to look for is heat treated pallets, and it'll be stamped with an HT on it. That means there's no chemicals. They use heat to treat the wood. And so look for heat treated pallets, and then try to look for ones that are the same size if you can. These pallets are absolutely free. I actually pried them apart. A crowbar helps. I even reused the nails that was in the pallets to tack them back together. So here's one we're using for carrots this year. The one behind me is for strawberries, and you can see I've just tacked it together. This is the corner. I've just used a scrap piece of 2x4 in the corners, and this one is 3 pieces of wood deep, and the other 2 are 2 pieces, and these have done really well. Now they won't last long term, as well as some of the other heavier duty raised beds that we have, but to get us started and for really cheap, pallets are a great source to use for your raised beds. All right, the next type of raised bed that we're going to look at here are these ones. This is made out of fir. We were fortunate enough to have a friend who has a portable sawmill, and he actually milled these for us fresh last year. These are 10 inches and 12 inches deep, and that's about right for a raised bed. You could go down to maybe 6 or 8 inches deep, depending on what the soil quality is underneath and how deep are the roots that you're going to have in your vegetables and what you're planting in them. Obviously, if you're going to have things that have a lot deeper root systems or something like potatoes, a raised bed that's deeper, like 12 inches or more, will be beneficial for you. You could have them all the way up to 3 feet high as well if you want to be closer to your vegetables and not down on the ground. Just remember that you're also going to have to fill these beds with soil, so something to keep in mind. Our garlic here loves these raised beds. All right, here's our last type of raised bed that I'm going to show you today. This is a large bed that we use for potatoes and zucchini, and I just use this with logs that we got out of the ditch and out in the forest and different places, and we've put those together with some rocks underneath, and this has contained the soil really well. I started a potato garden here last year from scratch just by using these logs. I put cardboard underneath on top of our lawn, and then I used straw and layers of manure, like bagged up manure from the nursery, and the potatoes really loved it and they did really well. So here's another bed I made this year. We'll be planting our hemp in here, and another one on this side beside our chicken coop. And next I'll show you how we actually do that from scratch. These aren't necessarily raised up, but I've used the same kind of idea of using logs to contain the soil, and then I've mulched around it with bark mulch. And what I'm going to do now is actually put one more in here, and so I'll grab my shovel and we'll get started. I'll bring you along for the ride. Now for these raised beds here that we built, I put them right down on top of the sod. We built the beds and then we put down cardboard right on top of the sod so we don't have to dig it out. And we don't put landscape fabric under it either. We really want the cardboard to decompose over time, and it won't take very long. It'll also allow worms to come up from underneath into our garden bed, which is absolutely beneficial. But for this one here, because it is actually at ground level, I am going to dig out the sod. I'm going to put our logs in as the borders, and then I'm going to fill it with soil. And I am going to use cardboard around the outside. I'll show you what that looks like as we get going. I'll put our bark mulch on top of that, and that helps to prevent the weeds and the grass from growing up underneath. All right, this sod makes great material for inside of a raised bed. So for like this one here, you could actually use this, flip it over, and put this in the bottom of your raised bed. It'll break down and decompose over time, and also you won't have to fill it with expensive premium soil. All right, that should be good. All right, so I've dug into the ground here. I've removed this sod and some earth underneath it. I'm actually going to take the sod that I took out. I've decided I am going to put it in here. I'm going to put it in upside down, so this grass will just decompose and it'll turn into soil. This is topsoil really underneath the grass, and so this is decent to put in here. And this is deep enough that any weeds that are in here aren't probably going to grow up through the ground. And so that's how I'm going to actually start the bottom of this hole, and then we're going to mix up some soil with some compost. So let's go have a look at our compost bin. Okay, we are ferocious composters. I've built a couple compost bins here out of pallets. Again, free. We love free around here. And I'll do another video on how to do this and how to compost. But a really great thing to put in the bottom of my new little bed that I'm creating is this compost here. This is not finished yet. It's still got lots of loose components in it. You can see there's bits of leaves and sticks, and there's eggshells and orange peels. There's bits of horse manure that we've put in here. And if you dig in here, you can see this is really nice. I mean, the worms are in here eating this stuff up, creating lots of worm castings. So I'm going to put some of this stuff, even though it's not finished, into the bottom of the bed. And then I'm going to take some soil that I have and I'm going to add some finished compost to it. This is stuff that's finished. This was compost that we did over the winter. This will be really nice stuff, high nutrients, and it'll be great for the soil health for our new bed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in this soil. This is just regular garden soil that we've borrowed out of a previous bed that I had it heaped up in. So we're going to put that in here next. Every year I usually get a bunch of these. This is mushroom manure. You could use a sheep's manure, cow manure, whatever, blended. But this is just really nice, rich, organic material that'll help to condition the soil. I would usually mix this in with the topsoil I put in here in a wheelbarrow, but because my wheelbarrow is full of material for something else, I'm going to make a video on how to do hugel culture using some of this material. I'm just going to actually mix this in with a shovel right in the bed. And then lastly, this is our finished compost from our bin. I'm going to put this here on top. That's going to have lots of nutrients right here on the top for our plants we're going to plant in this bed. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken some of this cardboard that we have and I've just placed it around the bed. You can see it's right over top of the sod. I actually ran out of cardboard, so we're going to be using a little bit of packing paper. This works, I've used that before. Layer it up thick. Newspaper would also work. And then we're just going to put this mulch right over top of it. And this cardboard and paper will decompose over time, and the mulch will help to keep the weeds down, and it'll actually benefit the soil long term as it decomposes. Hi, Priya.
Hi.
You want to see our new bed? All right, so we're all finished here. We've got soil back in the bed, and we've mulched around it with our free wood chips that we get from our local tree service. And we're going to put in here a zucchini plant, right, Priya? Yeah, this zucchini sprouted for us last night. We planted it about a week ago inside. It's a little early to put it into the bed, but we'll put it out here probably in a couple weeks as the soil warms up. It's the 1st of May today. But what I can put in here right now is something like arugula. This is really fast growing. It'll be ready in 4 or 5 weeks, and we'll have fresh arugula while we're waiting for our zucchini plant to grow up and take up this space. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you learned something new. Hope you enjoyed this. And whether you're planting in a bed like this or in a raised bed, I would encourage you to get gardening, grow your own food. More than ever, I'm seeing people so interested in being in control of their food and where it comes from. And so if you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comment box down below. And until next time, bye for now.